let's get into this. You can probably almost hear the packing sounds in the background here at the old railway depot.
Yeah, it's a bit frantic.
And there's still that faint sulfur smell hanging around, kind of a reminder of, well, recent events.
Mm-hmm.
This is it, though. Last recording from this place before we have to move on again.
It is. Circumstances, well, let's just say Grandman Friedensberg's interest in us hasn't exactly waned.
No, quite the opposite. So yeah, time for a change of scenery. Fast.
Very fast.
So for this deep dive, we're doing something a bit different. We've got this script we've prepared, kind of like our final thoughts from here.
Like opening a time capsule from, what, an hour ago?
Pretty much. And it includes a sort of provisional farewell message we put together for you, the listeners. That's going to be our main focus.
And we'll tie in other bits and pieces, other source materials where it makes sense.
Right. Now, revisiting this, something really jumps out.
The German podcast.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that we mentioned knowing about this German podcast, looking into MWF.
And for anyone just joining us, MWF is this. Well, this phenomenon, these strange occurrences we've been tracking.
Well, well, well. Sounds like some folks across the pond have been having a little discussion about, well, about us.
Oh, really?
About our work.
Seems like it. Heard some German audio. Sounded like they were talking MWF.
Yeah.
And us.
Interesting. And what exactly were these commentators saying? Amateurs, I think, was the gist.
Pretty much. Apparently, they've waded into the MWF saga. And from what we could piece together, it was, let's just say, enthusiastically delivered. They're wondering where certain other podcasters even get their information.
That's something. Considering how unconventional the MWF material often is,
Right.
you could see why outsiders might be a bit mystified about the sources.
Totally. And
Right. And our main way of understanding all this chaos comes from what we've been calling the MWF Compendium.
which is basically our huge collection of everything we could find. Transcripts, notes, files.
All the interconnected bits, connections to that band, the Doza crew, even those really unsettling internal reports from Greiman and Friedensberg and Vision Unit Regulus. It paints a very specific, often disturbing picture.
It really does.
So you can imagine our surprise finding this new German podcast. It sounds pretty amateur, low budget,
Yeah.
but they're tackling MWF.
Which immediately makes you ask, how?
Right. Where are they getting this stuff? Especially considering how sensitive, maybe even dangerous, some of the later MWF topics got.
It really makes you think about how information, even really obscure stuff like this, just spreads and pops up in places you'd never expect.
And whether it's accurate,
Yeah.
that they don't have the full context.
Which brings us to the main concern, really.
Yeah. Because from what we can tell, this German podcast, they definitely do not have the compendium, not as we understand it anyway.
And that's worrying.
It is. Because you wonder, do these people have any idea what they're potentially dealing with? The real weight of some of this stuff.
Especially the later episodes, Schwatten, Greinman, those,
It's
Malian.
exactly. The test anomalies. If you just stumble on that without the background,
Yeah.
you could easily miss how serious it all felt.
Without the compendium, you're missing so many connections. The underlying story. It's like trying to assemble something complex with half the pieces missing. You might get the shape wrong.
Precisely.
MWF Compendium. It's quite a collection. Unique stuff.
It's really unique.
And without that context, yeah, you could easily misunderstand things. Seriously misinterpret them.
And that's why we wanted to do this deep dive for you today.
To offer some clarity.
Yeah. We gather this German podcast might be giving a slightly, well, let's say skewed version, which, funnily enough, brings us right here to today. Because you might have heard whispers, maybe even some full-blown theories about our own experiences. Specifically, that whole Grindman prototype situation down here at the
Or
Bahnhofsschlag.
the train depot.
For those not up on the lingo, yeah. The train depot.
Ah, yes.
But the worrying part is how much they seem to know. Like, about really recent stuff. Stuff that happened right here.
That anomaly.
Yes. How do they know about the anomaly? It makes you wonder what they actually understand.
Especially about Regulus 5.
Exactly. We stress in our notes here that Regulus 5, it's not just some theory or, something you analyze musically like they seem to think.
No, it's become uncomfortably real for us.
Very. But look, as much as that German podcast situation is concerning,
Our immediate problem is getting out of here.
priority number one, the Grindman issues, the feeling we're being watched more closely now.
Yeah.
We just need to go.
No question. We can't afford any delays.
So we're packing light, but taking the essentials. The GR5 device, obviously.
That specialized receiver, yeah.
The
Crucial.
hard drive, too, with all the old recordings. Can't lose those.
Definitely not. And of course, the Grindman prototypes.
Oh, yeah. That collection of weird tech. Given recent events, absolutely essential.
These pieces have been, let's say, central to some of the odder findings.
Understatement. Okay,
Yeah.
so central to these last recordings we prepared was this farewell message.
Mm-hmm. The script confirms it was ready to go. It really highlights why we need to disappear for a bit.
But also makes it clear we're not giving up.
Absolutely. A commitment to keep going despite needing to go underground.
Okay, let's hear the message itself.
Yeah.
This is what we drafted.
Liebe treue Hörer, vielen Dank für die Zeit mit uns. Wir müssen uns leider vorläufig in den Untergrund verabschieden. Die Kräfte sind zwar am Ende, aber wir werden niemals aufgeben. Wir haben Kontakt mit Romanka, mehr können wir aktuell nicht preisgeben. Wir hoffen, uns bald ausführlich wieder melden zu können. Passt auf, besonders an den deutschen Podcast. Sucht nicht die Büchse der Pandora. Wir versuchen hier und da mal einen schnellen Datendrop zu senden, vielleicht ein wenig interdimensionales Radio hier.
Ja.
Das GR5 haben wir jedenfalls mitgenommen und ein paar alte Folgen neu entdeckt mal da. Die Festplatte ist ja auch noch da. Eure Suchenden.
So listening back to that, you really pick up on a few things. First, that clear need to go underground.
Yeah, and the feeling of being worn out. Die Kräfte sind zwar am Ende, our strength is at an end.
But then immediately, that defiance. Aber wir werden niemals aufgeben. We will never give up.
It really paints a picture, doesn't it? Under massive pressure, totally exhausted, but still fighting.
Determined. Then there's the Romanka mention.
Right, that name again. And the way it's phrased, mehr können wir aktuell nicht preisgeben. We can't reveal more right now.
It screams caution, sensitivity, whatever that contact is. It's clearly dangerous territory for now.
Tied into why they presumably.
Almost certainly. And hope to get back in touch properly later, so it's meant to be temporary.
A temporary silence, yeah. But then, the warning.
Yes. Directed squarely at the German podcast, Sucht nicht die Büchse der Pandora.
Don't seek Pandora's box. Wow. That's pretty direct.
It is. It suggests the podcast is messing with something incredibly dangerous, like about to unleash chaos.
And when you put that warning next to what we know about...
The anomaly.
Exactly, the one triggered by that seemingly useless Grindman box.
Which proved Regulus 5 was real, not just a concept, but something tangible, something that does things. Maybe triggered by that Grindman tech, and it was bad. Really bad.
Worried the German podcast, digging into MWF, is about to do the same thing. Open Pandora's box.
It implies the consequences could be, well, devastating. Not just for the podcasters, maybe for others too.
Yeah. Okay, so digging a bit deeper into the context, think about where this station...
Right. This abandoned, dusty, cold, frankly run-down train station, full of old junk, debris.
It gives you that feeling of isolation, doesn't it? And being exposed.
Constantly feeling watched.
Of course, after their previous run-ins with Grindman Friedenswerk tech.
We've seen the analyses, the reports, how unpredictable that stuff can be.
Or frustration.
And then, bam, the anomaly hits. It shows how fast things can flip.
From mundane static to, well, reality tearing apart.
And the trigger seems to be that new Grindman device that showed up, the complex one with the weird regulator.
That matches the descriptions perfectly, doesn't it? It wasn't just standard kit.
No. And we know there was caution. One of them, at least, was warning against using it.
Had a bad feeling, which turned out to be completely justified.
But, isolation, boredom, curiosity, push the button, so to speak.
And triggered the event. The descriptions are chilling.
The sounds. Starting with a hum, then that deep rumble and the high-pitched whine.
Yeah, and the flickering lights, the sulfur smell again.
Which, as you said, links to those MWF reports. Folge 605 specifically mentioned it.
And the sounds of the horde, or the eternal stroll, that muffled marching, dragging, the screams.
It is inhuman screams. It paints a really vivid, really terrifying picture.
And then that glimpse. Just a brief look through some kind of tear.
Something related to Regulus 5, maybe, and those sounds.
Whatever it was, it caused immediate fear. Recognition almost. We're seeing it, and it was bad.
And then, just as suddenly, it collapses. The anomaly ends.
But leaves behind that intensified feeling of being watched. Now focused right on that spot.
It's a huge shift.
Right.
It went from analyzing reports, listening to recordings,
to being in it. Experiencing it directly. Something tangible and dangerous.
which brings us right back to that warning. Don't open Pandora's box. They've seen what happens when you peek inside, maybe accidentally kick it open.
Yeah, they've had a taste of it. Telling the German podcast, don't go there.
So wrapping up the key points, forced underground, fallout from the anomaly, pressure from Grindman.
Worried about this German podcast investigating MWF, hence the Pandora's Box warning, tied directly to a nasty experience with Grindman Tech and Regulus 5.
But it leaves so much hanging, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
What about the German podcast? What do they know? Are they in danger now?
And Romanka, what's that connection all about? So many threads left dangling.
Yeah. So when we hear these other reports maybe questioning our info or downplaying the risks,
Yeah.
it really does sound like they might be working with, well, an incomplete deck, maybe without access to the actual compendium.
It's almost funny. Questioning where we got our info. We're in the depot, we lived through it,
Right.
and the Grindman incident isn't some half-remembered story. It's right there,
Yeah.
documented in the compendium,
Right.
which we know pretty well.
And there's the broader, but despite needing to go dark, promise to try and stay in touch.
With you, the listeners. Interdimensional radio with the GR5.
And maybe releasing old recordings from the hard drive, finding ways to keep the search going.
We're not giving up, even on the run.
Definitely not.
So maybe the thought to leave you with is about that line. The line between looking into something and, I don't know, interfering with it.
How easily does curiosity, maybe even just boredom in a place like this, push you over that line?
Especially when you're dealing with forces you absolutely do not understand. Perhaps, like them, you might wonder, is it always wise to try and peek inside every box, even if it's not marked Pandora's? So maybe a final thought to leave you with. What does it mean when stuff like this, obscure, potentially dangerous information, starts bubbling up in unexpected corners? Are these amateur podcasters just naively poking at something they don't understand? Or is there something bigger going on, some network we can't see?
It makes you think about information itself, doesn't it? The danger of getting it wrong, of having incomplete pieces.
And how even fringe content, things like MWF, might hold some really unsettling truths, maybe even talking about it like we're doing. Maybe that carries its own risks in this weird landscape. Something to consider.